the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still hear you in the breeze, see your shadows in the trees, holding on, memories never change.
Okay, good evening everyone. No, wait. This is... I'm so used to basically making the stream in the evening that I guess is like it's morning still, or well, maybe afternoon for like just early afternoon, like 15 minutes past noon, right? So yeah, I started with good evening. Okay, but no, good afternoon, everyone. This is going to be a rather short stream. Well, short, maybe 1 hour, maybe two, so not that short, but it's not going to be too exciting. I'm just going to continue basically to learn Rust, to follow with Rust, and to, let's make it a little bit like this. And what I'm finishing right now is like transcribing the first code, because I learned by just transcribing. This is like the first step of my usual learning process, just to grab some code and transcribe it, to get familiar with the syntax, to start formulating questions, start formulating some hypotheses about how the language works, based on the code which I observe. And this is what I'm going to continue doing. I'm just like going to finish today basically the first piece of the code, which is the library by Sondrella, who created this BMP image parser in Rust, and I want to finish transcribing that, and then I'm going to test it. Then I'm going to like experiment maybe a little bit. I had some ideas about what to check, and then I'll move to transcribing and everything. I have no idea yet what, but I will basically move to that. And I will start making notes, start writing down questions which I have, and after like a few more hours into this, I'm going to start likely going through the Rust book maybe, or something similar, because I already have questions in my mind, so I kind of know what answers. When I see an answer in the text to one of the questions which I phrased, it will give me a little bit more than if I would just like jump straight into the book. Then I wouldn't have questions. I wouldn't know what I'm looking for. I would just like yeah, it's maybe just me, but I don't think it is just me. But when reading through some text, like be it a book about programming language or something else, the first read which you do, if you have like no information at all in your brain about the topic, it's going to be like you're just going to scratch the surface. Yeah, you're going to read the words, right? But like they are not going to stick with you. And after reading like another time, after like a couple of months, you will see, oh, I missed this part and that part last time I was reading. And then after a year, you read it again and you're like, oh, I actually didn't know that. Even though I read it already twice, I didn't notice this thing. So I'm kind of trying to like save a couple of months by already looking at the code, making some questions, making some hypotheses, and then reading it. So that should, in my opinion, kind of saves me some time at the end of the day, even though it's kind of boring to watch, so I have no idea what you're doing here. But yeah, so there we are. So I will continue with this, and I think this is going to be the last episode with this transcribing, and then again the next one is going to be something else. In the meantime, there were a lot of people messaging me with hints basically about Rust, and like comments about what I'm doing on the live stream. Like Benny has sent me, for example, in my Discord, really like useful stuff. Andrew M as well. So I need to go through that, and I will likely go through that on after I finish transcribing this, as in like in the next episode. I don't want to do it off stream because I want to document my whole journey with Rust basically. So that I'm not doing anything off stream. Everything, all the learning of Rust which I'm doing, I will be doing on live stream, so that if you're interested, you might pick something up. If you want to bash me because I misunderstood something and it's actually the other way, please do that. That will help me at the end of the day. And also maybe at the end there will be, it's pretty interesting to actually see how interesting for myself to see how I actually like what did I do to learn stuff. I never documented this kind of things over my life, so this is an interesting thing. At the end of the day, I want to arrive at a pretty decent level with Rust, so yeah. Okay, quickly on the chat, I'm pretty ready to start transcribing, basically. Quickly on the chat, when will be Rust in Polish? So, Michał, I will not do Rust in Polish because that's just like, that doesn't make sense, as in, I'm already doing it in English, and I cannot pretend I'm relearning the same stuff in Polish, and I don't want to split one topic into Polish, English, Polish, English. There will be other content in Polish, and one thing which I keep answering folks is like when they ask about Rust in Polish is that when I reach a really decent level, like in a couple of months in Rust, then I can do Rust content in Polish as well. But that would be like not from me learning and stumbling over my feet basically, which is what I'm doing now with Rust. that would be future me who actually should be somewhat proficient with Rust already. Greetings from India. Salman, hi, hello, welcome from India. Yeah, usually I do the streams in the evenings, but I decided that hey, I can try to do some in the morning. I know I have like folks from India watching as well, and from like Australia, Japan, and so on. So welcome, absolutely. Okay. Gal writes that in the previous stream we were experimenting with super in use, and I did remove the super because I was it's probably here, right? I removed it because I was like, we were chatting about jumping out of namespaces basically, because like if you think about programming languages, at the end of the day, every name which you use, like a function name, like a variable name, and so on, belongs to some namespace. And the namespaces might be like, there might be just one namespace in the whole language for both functions, variable names, and so on and so forth. That's only the case for really, really simple languages which don't even have like local variables, if only global variables, right? And you might have like a one namespace for that. Then you might have languages which have like two separate lists basically of names. That's what a namespace is. It's just a list of names, right? And you might have like one for variables and one for functions, which would imply that you can have a function name identical to a variable name. And then from context, the language knows, oh, I want to call a function, or I want to like assign something to a variable, right? And then it reaches to the proper list and like finds in that list a reference to a proper variable or proper function. This doesn't work, of course, if you have like, for example, in C or in Python, like you have in C pointers to functions. So if you have a pointer to function, and then you call that pointer, you call that function which is pointed to, then the syntax is identical to just a normal function call, which means that the compiler couldn't distinguish it, which kind of points that likely variables and functions have the same namespace in C. And then the namespaces, this is like the linear namespace approach, and then you might have namespaces which are actually, let's call it like a file system directory tree. So you might have like a global namespace, which is like the highest level, top level namespace, but then you might have like a directory in that namespace, which is, for example, a directory like here called std. This is like a directory inside the global namespace. And then, or likely in multiple namespaces, because I guess like Rust will have separate namespace for structure names, for types, for file names, blah, blah, blah. No, not file names, for function names and so on. It will, I don't know yet. That's the question. How many namespaces does actually like separate categories of namespaces does Rust have? But I already can see by namespaces that these namespaces are like a file system at the end of the day, right? So I have this directory called std and this directory in a namespace, and then this directory. I have another one called io, and in this namespace directory, I will have like a couple of entries, read, seek, and seek from. So we were discussing basically like if you're like in some inner directory in the namespace, how do you jump out? How do you refer to something which is above? And that's why I removed the super here. And super, I was told on chat that super jumps out one level above. And I was saying that this syntax in C++ at least would mean jump out fully to a global namespace. It would be identical to using a slash in a file system, right? Like slash etc, for example, means jump out to the top of the file namespace, to the directory space, and basically to the root of the disk, if you will. And here it would be, I think, in C++ at least, this would jump out there, which kind of means that I forgot to include it again, the super, which was here. There we go, yeah. 436. 436. What's the line number, Colduin? Focus. Yeah, so sorry, I don't have my hair tied today because it's still wet. I just like came back from my walk and took a quick shower. Okay, and there we go. So yeah, and I'm guessing like mod tests is a namespace in this case. So super means that jump out of this tests namespace, which we are currently at. Like at this cursor position, I am in the tests namespace, jump out of it, and then use everything from above, which kind of means like this is like basically like symlink everything which is above to this namespace. And this namespace directory. That's, if you're thinking about a file system, that's how you would think about it. So, okay. And it says super.supper. Although supper might be interesting at a later hour. Someone says, sir, your content is very awesome and unique. Thank you very much. Thank you for the compliment. I think that's a compliment. Well, awesome is a compliment. Unique is a subject for interpretation. I am going to treat it as a compliment. Thank you very much. I do hope you enjoy it. And you can learn something along with me. Okay, yeah, this is the typo I said yesterday I will be making all the time. Instead of writing create, I will be writing create. It's same if I write like in Python, very commonly. I write print, so instead of print, I write printf, because in C, C++, which I coded in the past at least, a lot in, yeah, but like, made my muscle memory type printf. It's like, same, instead of, I want to write like spring, yeah, I write sprintf. This is basically how I write spring. If I would be writing like a normal, you know, text in English, like, oh, the spring this year is awesome, you can bet that it's going to be, oh, sprintf this year is awesome. And I will be making the same mistake with create. I will be writing create there. And when I'm learning German, for example, I am like constantly using, instead of habe in the past form, that's like to have, I'm using had, like in English, like past form from to have. Muscle memory, folks, muscle memory. Or is it brain muscle memory? I don't know. Same thing, same thing. Okay, so from byte order, I'm using little endian and write bytes x. This is, I don't know what this means, what this might be. I'm curious. Or is it just like, because it's in byte order namespace, or byte order module, whatever. I don't know. That's interesting. So let's continue with this. Okay, now I'm confused. Why is self? So is IO actually some kind of an object? Why is self exported? This is unusual. I don't believe I ever saw something like this, but somebody is like using, like, exporting self and then importing self. Like, what does that even mean? But I am not, again, I'm just transcribing now, just trying to familiarize myself with the syntax and form some questions. I am not yet looking for answers to these questions. I will be looking for answers later on. Okay, public function which takes a reference to an image and returns an IO result. With result being like optional, but if, from what I was told on the chat, but if the result is not checked, then Rust will complain, which is a really cool thing. Let mutable BMP data Gal writes that this code is slightly old and I don't have to use this external crate anymore in modern Rust. Yes, but this was already said to me, but this module is a little bit old, it's not idiomatic with modern Rust. That's okay. I'm kind of sure that it will, as long as it will compile, it's still fine. And it's still fine either way. I'm fine with relearning what I'm learning right now, because the only constant thing in life is change. And sooner in your life you realize that the easier your life is going to be. Otherwise you'll be just saying, kids these days, yeah. BMP data, BMP image, right. And get off my lawn, I guess. Okay, this, I still need to later figure out what does this mean. I think you tried to tell me on the chat what does it do, but yeah. And OK is pretty interesting. I guess like OK is part of this result thing. It's like some object function thingy which creates a result object which says like that, yeah, result is fine, like there was no error, and on top of that it gets something to actually return. And then, as I learned yesterday, unwrap is what you do to get that. I think that's my current understanding. What's going on here, because I was looking. So yeah, I get a vector with capacity. What I was really surprised yesterday is why I don't put a type here. But then I was told that actually Rust is smart enough to figure out the type from where is this used, and this is passed to here. So I guess if we look at write header in the library, and wait, no, write header is going to be likely a function here. It's here, yeah. Then it's declared here. So because it's declared here, that this is a vector of bytes, basically, unsigned int 8-bit, that's a byte. Same as in C, basically. Then then because this is known what type this must be, therefore the Rust compiler will know what type to specify here, what like this template, which I guess it's a template. I don't know yet, but I'm guessing it's a template. What the type used by this template must be, which is super smart. I really like it. So like I'm kind of like, okay, because like when it comes to types, there are like two approaches, right? One approach is like when I'm writing code fast for a CTF versus CTF, I have to finish this task like within an hour, because then the CTF is over and my team is not going to win, right? Then I write in, like, I don't want types anywhere around. I want to just like type code, don't worry about types. I trace the types in my head well enough to know that I will not make a lot of mistakes, and the mistakes I may make, I will fix really fast. On the flip side, when I'm writing production code, I want to specify types everywhere where I can, because that way, this is basically defensive coding then. That way, if I make a mistake, a wrong assumption, the compiler at compilation time will catch my error. So Rust is like, it seems to be kinda in the middle-ish with type checking, but it's closer to being like really type like strict on types, which I don't hate it, honestly. Ido writes, is it Ido or Ido? Anyway, the question mark operator is used to propagate the error, if any, from the inner function call to the outer function. Wait, really? Really? So this is basically, if the result of this was error, then return that result object. That's not bad. That's actually solid. Okay, I can get behind that. Yeah, like really just rewriting this code gives me a lot of appreciation for Rust as a language. It seems to be a really great language. I'm sure I will be like missing and complaining multiple features once I start writing real code in it, but what I see for now is fine. And I think this was like a void equivalent, meaning that the result is really not returning anything, but it's still returning this metadata that it was okay or there was an error. This is my understanding of now, but when I first saw this syntax, I was like, what's going on here? What do they want from me? And Ido also writes, Ido also writes, what you see when you see the question mark placed after a function call, it indicates that the function returns a result or option type. I'm currently in my head, I have this model where result and option differ, but the result needs to be checked. After, like, the return value needs to be checked, and for option it doesn't have to be checked. That's my current hypothesis on that. That's not checked, not verified in any way. And the current function in which the question mark appears is also returning a result. Okay, yeah, so like, because if we want something to be propagated, the types must match, which is a prerequisite here, I guess. Cool, let's continue. Let header... Adam writes that, actually from my point of view, automatic type deduction can be helpful to prevent unwanted implicit conversions, C++ in mind. There are a lot of implicit conversions in C and C++. I am curious, really. When I start writing, I will make several experiments in Rust to check what's going on. Because this is okay, a short C++ break. If I have like short I equal 1, 2, 3, and I write code which is like, for example, auto b equals a plus 7, the question is like, are there any implicit conversions here? And the answer is there is one implicit conversion already here, because this is actually an int literal, which means that it's actually something like this. So like this is already an int, right? So I don't need this, but this is converted to a short. And then I have this, and this would be like 7 can be expressed as a short, right? But 7, as I said, is an int. It's an int literal, which kind of means that this is a short. The short will be promoted, will be sign extended into an int. So there's actually an implicit conversion here, another one, and this type will be likely an integer. And yeah, there are a lot of like stuff like integer promotion and some other types of conversions in C. You can set the compiler to complain about it, but you usually do want them to happen, and when you like expert enough with C or like senior enough with C, you start to rely on that. But it takes people by surprise at times. So yeah. There are some weird rules for that in C, so I'm curious how Rust solved the similar cases. In Python, for example, there are like less issues like that. There are some, like for example, if I have Python break, if I have like b as in like bytes plus a byte array of some other bytes, right? Like okay, let's assume this is the byte array, right? Is the output of this going to be bytes type or byte array type? So yeah, then like I think that's like in Python is like pretty minimal. There are like a couple of cases only. Usually it's pretty, because Python has less types than C or C++, especially Python 3. Python 2 had 2 integer types, had like ints and longs, which honestly they just like suddenly one switched into the other without you even knowing. And Python 3 has only ints, which basically is the long type merged with int type. It's weirder in PHP, for example, because in PHP, if you exceed the passable range value of an integer, then it's actually using a 64-bit integer, as PHP is. Then you switch, suddenly your variable, which was an integer, switches to float type, which is actually a double precision float, which is like, okay. And then it gets worse, because in old versions of PHP, at least, on 32-bit platforms, it used 32-bit ints, and on 64-bit platforms, it used 64-bit ints, meaning that the place where a variable switched into the floating point domain was like different on every platform, which is kind of weird because you expected a high-level language like PHP to not be dependent on like what CPU is running on, right? But that was not the case. So yeah, good morning, folks. Okay, what do I have here? This is a macro. File size is a macro. Did I actually have written, like transcribed this macro somewhere? Was it here or was it in consts? Macro file size, yeah, it's this macro. So okay, there are like expressions, 3 expressions which it takes. 24 image width, image height. Okay, and then it calculates stuff. Okay, and yeah, I already kind of looked at this calculation. I was a little bit surprised about like the operand order of these casts here, or conversions. I guess these might be conversions at the end of the day. So we do that, it returns... So this is a deconstruction. It's good to know that Rust has deconstruction, like I guess every modern language, including C++. The newer version of C++, of course. Anything else here? No, here I'm just like... I'm guessing like this is going to be a reference type then, and because there is no moot, I already like learned that moot... If there is no moot, it's going to be a const, which kind of means that's a const reference. So which kind of means it's an alias. Like a const reference to something is usually just an alias. It's like alias meaning that is really, really light on the compiler, on the rather generated code, not the compiler. Ah, perfect. And this is what I was asking about yesterday. Is like, are we going to write the whole structure or read the whole structure at the same time? No, we are going to do it field by field, which points me to a pretty... to first of all, be confused about one of the tests here, because there was a test which there was a size of operator used, where we checked the sizes of the structures, and it got me confused because like, why would you care about the size of a structure if you are not going to read or write it at the same time? But yeah, apparently here... okay, what am I looking at right now? But apparently here I'm doing it field by field. which answers one of my questions is like, can I make the same mistakes related to structures in Rust? And for writing, at least the author has chosen not to make the same mistake. The mistake is that if in C and C++ you have like padding rules, and if you write a whole structure, it's great, right? But you might have written fields which were uninitialized, or padding which was uninitialized, or alignment which was uninitialized, like the padding to align something at the end of a structure, for example. Which, like, if you find, like, Yuru has written a really good monography on the topic. It's like 100 pages long, but the part about this is rather short. It's about, like, leaking data from the kernel, and there are bugs like that. So at least this code points me to think that even if in Rust you can still do that mistake, at least the author of this code choose not to do that mistake. It's pretty cool that there are these functions. I really like to have these functions. Usually I have to implement them myself. If Rust has this already, is really cool. Now, what I'm confused here is I'm confused about this namespace notation, but then I suddenly am using template notation. I still don't know if these are templates, right? That's something I have to answer later. But like, for me, I thought of them like here, like vector U8. I thought about them as templates, and this doesn't make sense to me. I have no idea what's going on here. It's kind of weird. So I don't know. That's a nice question to be answered later. Okay, then creator1, which I already was expressing being surprised about what's that, and then I have another. It's cool that I can just propagate an error. Okay, and then I have header size, just the header size. This is the pixel offset, that's fine. Okay, so this is the file offset, and then I write the header size is going to be 40, so this is like type 3 BMP. By the way, if you're interested in file, because like for me, I know BMP really well, right? And this code is really obvious what's going on here. If you're like not comfortable with parsers, with binary files, like if you run a hex editor, you don't know what to do, I will be offering online trainings for that with my company in like later down the years, in a couple of months. So if you're interested, just check us out. Just check us out and give us a chance. Little endian, and then we do a dip header. Header size, yeah. So header size is going to be 40 in our case. When I do okay, and signed integer with the width. Okay, I see there's something on the chat. I will finish this function and read it. Height. Then I have unsigned integer 16-bit, which is just writing a constant, and the author has added numplanes here as a comment. This is well done, well done. This is like if you're writing production code and it's not obvious what is this constant, like logically, then write a comment nearby. You can write it like the author did. I would probably usually write something like this, like numplanes equal and to 1, right? It kind of looks weird, but you can get used to it. So it's really, I'm really happy that the author did that. Yeah, like here's me, like 3rd hour or 4th hour of writing Rust and already criticizing people how they write code and like judging them, right? But do note that even though I don't know Rust, I do have some programming experience. And a lot of mistakes I made during that time, including this one, which I just fixed. Dip header hrefs, and then what was the type here? Okay. Signed integer, then we have vertical resolution, physical resolution, and then I have 2 more fields, which are the number of colors. Are these really 32-bit fields? Maybe I thought we were like 8-bit fields. Let me quickly double check that. So this is which one was it? Bitmap info header. This is the name of that header which we are writing right now, and this is where we go. No, it's actually good, cool. Because I remember that they're doing this like weird stuff with 0, and I was always thinking like because like honestly this field is only used in 8-bit bitmaps. So, but okay, that makes sense. It's kind of weird, but it makes sense. But it's good always to double check that. Yes, I do have books sorted in colors behind me. That's an accurate observation. Let me quickly go through the chat. Option is some none. Result is okay error. If so, the result has a specific error. Option is some error. Okay, Gal writes that. Gal Horowitz. Okay, I guess I need to. I will see later exactly what are the implications of what you have written. IcePopo writes, it doesn't need to be checked. Result is okay or error, and option is either some or none, but similar but different. Okay. Morning, Kana. KrzaQ writes, I noticed that you are not using debuggers like GDB FE very often. What do you think? Is it better to learn new programming languages without using a debugger? And okay, great question. And let's go to my blog. If you let's do this. If you speak Polish, look at poradnik początkującego programisty. This is a text which I've written 14 years ago. About how to basically, when you're a beginner programmer, what you should know. And there's this point number 4 about debugging, how to solve problems by yourself. And this is in Polish, and there's also one in English because I had it translated. So let me quickly find that one. I hope I published it. And beginner. Oh, I didn't publish it yet in English. I'm sorry about that. You can use like translate to English option here, but I have this in English. I need to like publish this. But basically, there are like multiple methods which you use to debug a code, and the first method is the method which I usually use, and this is a printed method. It's basically like if you watched Sherlock Holmes' first movie, like the recent one from like 10 years ago now, or 15, whatever. Then like there's a quote where like data, I cannot build bricks without clay, and that kind of like explains the situation. It's like with printf, what you are doing is you are getting data. You can do that the same with a debugger, but you can likely do it faster using just printing some variables, or printing ASDF in different parts of the code to know how far do you go into this code. And this is just usually faster than running a debugger and setting breakpoints. Or like, even if you have like a visual debugger, than like moving your mouse around and clicking on proper lines, it's just faster to copy print it like a print function in a couple of places. So that's why I usually don't use a debugger, because this method is faster. That being said, there are times when a debugger is a better method. So then I go with a debugger method. And then there are like other methods. For example, there are, in some cases, you have to comment out large pieces of code and then basically do a binary search with the comments to figure out something. Then there are like cases where you add an infinite loop to your code. Yeah, that sounds funny, but sometimes debugging with infinite loop is actually a thing. This is like, these are weird cases, okay? These are really, really weird cases where you usually you cannot use the printed method and you cannot use the debugger either. For example, you are implementing BIOS or something. Then you might want to, or like a bootloader, then you might want to use infinite loops because they kind of tell you what's good, like when the program stopped or whether it did not stop. It gives you one bit of information, yes or no. So there are like multiple methods. Use all the methods which you want. When learning programming, if it's better for you to use a debugger because you don't have the whole model of a program in your head yet. It takes years of experience to have like a model of a program really like to visualize it really well. Then, or visualize is a little bit of a wrong word here, but to basically have a proper, accurate model of what's going on in your head. If you have that, then usually just like a couple of prints will tell you exactly what you need to know. Otherwise, if you don't see it yet, if you don't like predict what are the variable values, you need to see that in a debugger, use a debugger. Use everything which works for you. There is no one true way to do it. Whatever works for you, whatever is the fastest method for you, that's a good method. Yeah, for me, it's printed. That's why I usually do prints. And okay, I am missing an okay here. What's the name of the theme which I'm using in Sublime? This is actually my personal theme, which is using my personal colors. Well, similar to my blog. It's actually the colors from my blog. Now, if you look for Sublime and Ginveil, I think Paweł Kasi might have it on his blog. Sublime Ginveil. Yeah. Paweł Kasi has it. Yeah. So Sublime Gin colors for Sublime. The theme which I'm using is a little bit modified, but it's almost identical to what Paweł has on his blog, on his GitHub. Yeah, today the stream is early. I will be doing, when I'm learning Rust, I don't want to make too long breaks between live streams, and I do want to like consistently keep it like daily, learn a little bit of Rust, progress the learning. So I will be doing the streams at random hours, really random hours whenever I have some time. And believe me, like running a company which is growing and which is in its initial phase takes a lot of time actually. So yeah, I'll try to make a stream daily. I will miss some days, I'm pretty sure about that, just because of like meetings and obligations to the customers and so on and so forth. I learned already, but this just means like an array, a reference to an array of 4 zeros. And then I don't know what this means. Is this like... Okay, so I'm guessing this is the type. Oh, I'm guessing this is just a range. There was a language which used this range notation. What was it? Ruby. I think Ruby used a similar range notation. Ido writes, interesting to see your personal journey with Rust. It's really interesting to share it as well. And honestly, one thing I realized is a great way to learn, because I have a lot of smart people in my comments who are telling me like, oh, this is this is that. Oh, you made a typo there. This is amazing. Thank you, folks. Y times image width plus x as u size. Let px equal... Okay, right, BMP data, that's interesting. PXB, PXG, PXR. I'm going to analyze this code in a second, because I cannot scroll this. I apologize. I cannot scroll this because this is literally the end of a file. So let's maybe do it like this instead. Then I do right, BMP data padding. Okay, so what's going on here? Is this like a two-dimensional... Is this going to be a two-dimensional array with 0 as one dimension and the other dimension is going to be... I don't understand this line, but let's see how it's used, how the padding is used. Padding is just used by writing it. Okay. Is this like a slice? Is this cutting a slice? It might be cutting a slice. It might not be filling the array with a range, but it might be just cutting a slice of it. From index 0 to image padding which would make a lot of sense. I think this is slicing. Like, based on the context of how it's used, I believe this to be slicing, which is something which exists in Python, does not exist in C or C++, at least not as syntax sugar. Usagi Rise, I'm curious, why don't you use some IDE with autocomplete? I have autocomplete, absolutely. I don't. Okay, so there are like multiple ways of autocomplete, right? For example, if I write RW and press tab, I have hints, right? And the more I use it really quickly, so you might not notice it. What I don't have is I don't have autocomplete which understands the like things. For example, if I'm going to write here, right? I'm going to write img dot and press tab, nothing happens because I don't have IntelliSense. I don't have something which understands it. Why don't I have it? It's like this. I don't personally miss it that much, but I do realize it's super helpful. Now, sometimes this is unhelpful in a way. I ask, for example, maybe here's missing a semicolon. For example, I was writing code at Google, right? Before I left Google, I was writing some TypeScript code. And the editor there was like, I wasn't using Sublime, I was using a proper editor. And it was like trying to be very, very helpful, popping a lot of windows all the time and like giving me a lot of suggestions. And that was a little bit annoying because like I write something and I got like 3 different windows with like 3 different systems trying to like, or like whatever, right? Trying to tell me like, oh, do you want that or something else? And I'm like, okay, if I press like space, is it going to select one of the answers? Or do I have to press escape? Or do I have to press, how do I use the answer? Do I press space or tab or enter? Or do I just want to like write something and press enter to go to the next line, and one of the systems will be, oh, you want my hint, I'm going to insert it here. So that was annoying. So I also don't like that. So I am actively going to actually look for like use something like Visual Studio Code likely very soon and start switching to it. On the flip side, maybe not on live streams, but at least in personal coding, or rather in coding for the company. But on the flip side, there's a balance here to be struck, where when the systems are helpful and when the systems are not helpful. So yeah, so that's one of the answers. I don't like the editor, the IDEs which I'm using to be too helpful because that's counterproductive for me. On the flip side, I do like them to write code for me. So yeah, that's why we'll probably use like Visual Studio Code to get some AI into the process. I honestly don't mind coding with AI. It saves me time. I do need to fix some bugs for it from time to time, but it does save me time, which is a good thing. Will it like replace me as a programmer? No, no chance, really. Like, no, but it is helpful. Take a DM, right? But there's something called the Rust Analyzer, and it's really good. Okay. Okay, there's a question from Ido. Is the padding guaranteed to be less than 4? Yes, in BMP padding works like this, but if you have a scanline being 1 row of pixels, then due to alignment reasons, it has to be the size of the size of a full scanline has to be dividable by 4. So if you have, for example, the size of an image is like 1 pixel, and you are using 24-bit bitmap, meaning 3 bytes per pixel, then the size of the scanline is 3. 1 times 3, 3, which means you need to pad it to be dividable by 4. And this is for alignment reasons, because it's a little bit faster to access different scanlines. I'm not sure that's like super true on more modern CPUs. It really depends on like the assembly code at the end of the day, but there are cases where this is actually better. Okay, anything interesting here going on? I already fixed the 2 typos which I had. I'm like, my hand just like does the semicolon at the end of every statement by default. It wouldn't do it if I would be writing, for example, for a week or 2 weeks in JavaScript in style which doesn't use semicolons, because semicolons are actually optional in JavaScript, and they're like there's like a system called, I think, ASI, automated semicolon insertion, something like that, which means that you don't have to in JavaScript use the semicolons. And if I would be not writing it, that I would be not putting, if I would be writing it, that I would not be putting the semicolons anywhere. But yeah, but currently I am, after writing in some languages or using a syntax where I'm using semicolons, which means I will need to be cautious about not putting semicolons at the end of statements, which are return statements in Rust, which is weird. Not terrible, but weird. Which also explains why I didn't understand some code on CTFs in the past. On CTFs it's kind of funny, right? Because like you don't know a language and you get a task and you have to solve that task, right? Yeah, you have like, congratulations, you have 2 hours to learn enough Rust to solve this reverse engineering challenge where you get the code as the challenge and not the binary, right? That's life, that's life. No, it looks pretty... This is pretty interesting for me because it, like, in place it seems to create an array, a vector, an array, I guess, of 3 bytes, and then does a reference to it. A constant reference to it, by the way. And my question in my head is like, what is the lifespan of this object created here? I'm guessing the lifespan of this object created here is going to be only until the end of a line, or rather the end of statement. So, yeah, I don't think you could do in C++, maybe in some modern one. Cool. Okay, anyway, this is transcoded, so let's go with the next one. And I'm going to be... And this is the last file, basically, apart from examples for this. So let's quickly go through it. It's a little bit longer, but that's fine. Ponyrise, yesterday you mentioned that C++ exceptions are implemented with some weird bytecode VM stuff, but I couldn't find anything about it. Could you elaborate, point me to some resources? Pony, if you speak Polish, you are in luck because I have written an article about that. Genveil programista dwarf. Yeah, it's called like exceptions from the side of the kitchen, from the like back of the house, basically. And if you speak Polish, if you do not speak Polish, you can still open the article. I guess here will be a better way, and just look for like look at like the links which I'm giving here, because I'm giving a lot of links, and you will. This is, by the way, the bytecode, for example, right? Or rather the like assembly like bytecode for that. But there is a lot of links. My articles usually have a lot of links, so do check out these links, and you will find information about it. Or you can try to like put this in Google Translate. Yeah, here at the end there's like w sieci, this means like in the net, in the internet, and there are like some additional links. So just go to the end of the article. There are a lot of links. And this is, by the way, specific to the implementation on with GNU, with like GNU G++. So yeah, there we go. The implementation works differently on Windows. It's complicated, but yeah, like exceptions are interesting actually in these languages. Perfect. It's kind of funny, right, that the debugging symbols for elves are called dwarfs. It's like, I really like I know this is done on purpose, right, but it's still amazing. Extern create byte order. This is the decoder rs, the last file which I need to transcribe, apart from some short example code. Read bytes ext. Okay, so I was using write byte x. Where did I use the write byte x, by the way, here? I'm not using it anywhere. Why is it there though? I don't understand. Okay, maybe there's some... Maybe it's importing more than I think. Maybe I just don't understand yet the namespaces. Do I use Windows as the main OS for coding and CTFs? Question from TechWaves. No, no. I did use Windows for literally years. When like I was playing a lot of CTFs with Dragon Sector, that was all done on Windows. But a year ago, a little bit over a year ago now, I decided that Windows is annoying me. The Windows like Windows 10, Windows 11, because they are like pushing you more towards this like Microsoft account, cloud, Cortana, Microsoft Store model, and are like starting to be like antagonistic towards me as a super user. So I was looking for other Windows, like there's this Windows LTSC, like long-term support, something like that. There are like server Windows which also don't have most of this stuff, which is problematic for me, but the licensing model there is really horrible. So at the end of the day, I decided to give Linux a chance. I installed Linux on one of the Spur machines. I have like a couple of motherboards on like test benches, basically to just test stuff when I need it. These are like either super old or like super cheap machines, and yeah, so I tested some Linux flavors on that and decided to go for Kubuntu, and I am honestly really happy with the transition to Kubuntu. And I am not looking to go back to Windows anytime soon. I also later switched, I had a laptop with Windows, I also switched to Kubuntu with that. And now I do have a gaming PC with Windows though. BMP error, okay. Use self, I don't understand this. Is it this self? Is it this self? I don't understand this. I will need to learn about namespaces. But again, it's good because I'm starting to get these questions in my head and I will get answers later and I will spot the answer when I see it. And familiarize myself with it. And not miss it, basically, that's the point at the end of the day. Is BMP stuff used nowadays? Nah, not really. It's like, what you are using nowadays, well, you know what you are using nowadays, right? You're using PNGs for certain kinds of bitmaps, especially where you need precision of what the pixel color is. You are using JPEGs, you are using WebPs, you might be using the... there's another format for like HD images from Microsoft, I don't remember what's it called. So there are like a couple of other way better way better formats for storing or using images. In the past, when I had my first PCs over multiple years, BMP was still used. Like JPEG is pretty old actually as a standard. There were JPEGs already then. People are using like BMPs, JPEGs, PCXs, TGAs, LMBs or LBMs. I don't remember which ones, and yeah, sometimes BMPs as well. And then like everything like PCXs went away. They were compressed versions, weren't that bad. TGAs were also compressed, also went away. And now we are basically stuck with what's left. In game development, there are a couple of more formats which are more specific for a little bit better to put textures in because they decrease load times or something. I don't know. So yeah. But yeah, but BMP is it's implemented almost everywhere, but like everything can read it. Like in every library, you will find implementations of a BMP, but it is not used. According to Steam Deck and Proton, could handle quite a lot of Windows games. Yeah, I know, but games are one thing, right? But when you have the gaming hardware, like, you know, like gaming mice, gaming keyboards, gaming headsets, I play competitive games mostly, and like I have masters in Apex Legends, right? Okay, everyone this season has masters, but yeah, I have one too. So I like want to not have any issues with the hardware and hardware drivers when I'm playing. That might not be the case on Linux, because they are like gaming equipment manufacturers, they don't care about Linux. Thankfully, Steam Deck, Valve, and so on, they're doing a great job, and maybe that will change and that will be great. But we are not there yet. So, yeah, I don't think I have, like, there would be great support for like, I have, like, Logitech equipment, basically a Logitech keyboard, a Logitech, like, mouse, Logitech, like, headset, right, for playing, so, yeah. I don't think that would work well on Linux. And I know I could get it to work at the end of the day. I know that would, like, I would use a lot of time to do it. I don't like how this is formatted, and I think I am missing one. Yeah, this is good now. Okay, use self. Part of the world writes, use self is used to refer to the current module. That's an interesting tidbit of information, because it kind of points out that, like, if otherwise you are not really... Oh no, I get it. Because you might be really deep in the structure of the namespaces. Like, you might have like a namespace in a namespace in a namespace. I don't know if that's possible in Rust, but you might. So that gives you a quick symlink to the module like level. Oh, perfect. That's good. That makes sense. Thank you. I do know that people do play Apex on Linux, and like even like in recent seasons, and it works more or less. So yeah, I know that's doable. Yeah, it's kind of nowadays is like when I play games, I usually just want to like, you know, decompress myself and like have some fun, or like, I don't know, get annoyed by my teammates. I don't know, you know, competitive games, right? Thankfully, I'm playing usually with my friends, which is super awesome, actually amazing. So, yeah, so I don't want to fight with my system configuration too much. It's kind of unavoidable at the end of the day, even on Windows, but yeah. I have like one weird thing which is idiomatic towards my configuration on Windows, which I have to do after every reboot. Like, I have to set the proper... I have to like downclock the GPU memory a little bit and like change the model of the cooling of the GPU. I think it's of the GPU. Yeah, of the GPU. If I don't do that, then I get blue screens because the GPU overheats. And this is on me, in honesty, not on the GPU, because I have the gaming machine in my server rack. The airflow there isn't. I didn't thought through the airflow in that. Okay, there is airflow, but not enough to go with my GPU to max. So I have to downclock it a little bit. On the flip side, is one of these like overclocking GPUs. So they overclock it at the when booting, and I downclock it when I want to play. BMP error. Yeah, you missed BMP error. No. Aha. Okay. Because it's double here. Thank you. Thank you, ABC. Can you develop Web3? No, I honestly am not a fan of Web3. I think this is ridiculous. Okay? It's Web3 is as a technology. Okay, as a technology, Web3 is pretty amazing. Like, I read the original publications for like from Satoshi for Bitcoin and so on and so forth. Technically amazing stuff. I really love it. It's great. How it's used socially is ridiculous, and yeah, like please don't put that evil on me. So no, I'm not really touching that. Well, I did solve a couple of CTF challenges, Web3 related, which was pretty interesting because they have their own virtual machines there. But yeah, no. Like, if you like chasing fads, AI is way more interesting. It's overhyped and over-advertised, but it's not a bad technology either. As in, like, well, okay, it has there are issues, ethical issues, moral issues. There will be people who lose their jobs, but it's still like a level better than what's going on in Web3 world. There's a really amazing blog called like Web3 is going well or something like that, which has like really funny stories of failures. There are some interesting books as well on the topic. There is a reason why we banned Web3 articles in PageTout. There was some funny run-ins with like some people from Web3 communities as well. That's a story for another time. Hedal writes, gaming hardware configuration is not really possible on Linux, but if you don't need to configure RGBs, for example, they work fine. That's not fully true, actually, because like there are community-created software and drivers for a lot of stuff, like a surprising amount of stuff, including configuring RGBs. So it's not that bad, but it's still like, oh, you need to install this additional stuff and so on. Okay, cool. What did I just write? Because I was chatting instead of focusing on writing. So, details. Okay, like, honestly, this is syntax which I already saw. I don't think there's anything new here which would surprise me. This from IO error is interesting. I'm curious how it was used. I need to check later. It's probably going to happen in a second. And yeah, anti-cheat software on Linux was always a problem. Like back in the days, there was a lot of like bad press for Blizzard for banning people who were just like playing WoW, like World of Warcraft on like Linux, right? And yeah, and like I know that game companies say that the game is unsupported on Linux, right? But being unsupported is not the same as it's forbidden to play on it. This is not what they say. They just say they are not going to support you. But banning somebody because they play on Linux is ridiculous. Like just get your anti-cheat software in order and support Linux as a platform. On the flip side, there are like, you know, dozens of players who play on Linux, and so they don't really have an incentive to put a programmer or a whole team to fix errors. Which is why I'm happy with Steam Deck and like with Proton and like initiatives like that, because like the more people play on Linux, the more incentive there will be for companies to support Linux as a like a, you know, first world customer, I guess. I don't know how. There is a phrasing in English how you say that. First class customer, like a, you know, a customer who is on the same level and not like seen as yeah, the Linux guys again. Much. I was thinking about getting Steam Deck, but at the end of the day, I don't play that much games which I could play on a handheld. Because I either play the competitive stuff on, which I need a gaming PC for that, right? Like you're not playing competitive on a low power machine or with any success. And unless you're way a better player than me. But I need to compensate a little bit with a few more FPSs, honestly, for being old, I guess. For being old. I will be, I guess, one of these, you know, elderly people playing games which you read on about. But whole our generations will be doing that. That will be cool. Will there be like retiree leagues when I will retire? That will be cool. I'm looking forward to that. It's still decades in front of me though. BMP version. Yeah, this match thing is really similar to Python 1. The issue is that I don't understand the match in Python that well. So hopefully, sometimes it's like this. You have your like Lieblingsprogrammiersprache. You have your favorite programming language where you and you're like learning it all the time and you're having issues with understand some things, and then you jump to another language and another language does something else a bit different, and you get that, and then you go back to your language and you're like, huh, actually now I understand this part, or like I learned something from that language which I can actually import into this language and I can do it in a little bit a different way. That's like learning by analogy from different languages is absolutely amazing. Sad asks, are you still using a VM with X11? No. Because I have, because it's like, you know, native X server basically, so I don't have to do it anymore. And I don't have, so I don't need a VM to do it, I can just do it natively. And I don't have a Windows image running in the background. I honestly do not have needs to use Windows tools, I guess. At least I don't remember the last time where I needed to use something which is only for Windows, which would not work on Wine. I have Wine. So like if I, for example, need network monitor, which is a really cool tool for analyzing pickups, then like, you know, network packet captures, then yeah, then Wine does the job. Wine is a super interesting project. I always like was pretty amazed by it and like respected the work that the community puts there. Because it's basically a re-implementation of WinAPI, right? And there is like WinAPI is the largest part of the API. Underneath that you have on Windows the anti-API, native API, which is like what the kernel actually exposes. So I think they had like to implement pieces of both for the applications on Windows to function, and they are really like doing a great job. It's not perfect, especially like when it comes to font rendering or some UI issues, or like some super modern features on Windows, but it is surprisingly good. Okay, so I have two functions which will read the headers, and I'm just getting the headers from them. So yeah, I'm no longer using Windows as the main OS, I'm on Kubuntu now as the main operating system. Sorry. Okay. Dip header. Okay, let's scroll this a little bit. With equal dip header with absolute value as U32. Now, is this a correct absolute value, or is it one of the absolute value functions which can return a negative value? Something to check later. IDEs as U32. I guess like I'll choose something with networking code maybe, or maybe some UI. Maybe I should choose some UI project or like a web project. For maybe some game. Maybe I should transcribe some game. That would be fun. Match. Anything weird here? No, nothing weird. Is this correct? That's weird. But maybe it's correct. That is weird. Okay. Match some ref. Oh, what's ref? Hello, ref. Did I see a ref before? I don't think I saw a ref before. Okay, that's new. Okay, read indexes. Wait, BMP data get mutable. What's BMP data again? BMP data is this vector. So So get mood, what does get mood? Oh, normally the reference would be unmutable, and this is how I get a mutable reference, I guess. Width as use size, height as use size. I'm wondering how much problems the barrow checker will be for me, honestly, because I've done a lot of C++ programming with like std unique, where you have to think about basically the same things when you're kind of like. But barrow is a little bit different. I think the barrow checker is even more restricted. I'm really curious to find out how much trouble will the barrow checker give me, and how unused will I be to thinking about what it needs. Okay, here, what's going on here? Read indexes, was it a function call? Yeah, it was a function call. Now it makes sense because it has this question mark, and then it is a return value. So whatever it does, it returns. Okay. I wonder if this question mark is needed here in that case, because if like this returns an error, then like it will propagate the error anyway, and if it doesn't, maybe the question mark does some conversion as well. Yeah, I'm not sure if this question mark is needed here, honestly, like based on what I know about it. It might be needed, so maybe let me like, can I remove it? Just something to experiment with later. Okay, and otherwise, there's a none here. None. If there's no, what was there? Is there's no palette? No palette. Okay, because this is reading palette, the palette of colors. What's the size of a palette is going to read? This is wrong, or is it? Where is the size of a palette passed? Like in BMP format, you have this field here, which we discussed already. This is the number of colors in the color palette. It doesn't have to be a full color palette. Where is the number of palette being passed to this function? It should be like dip header dot whatever this field is called, and it should be passed to this function. I do not see it passed. Maybe the palette has already a proper size. Maybe that's the thing. But the palette was created somewhere with a proper size, and it can derive this palette size. I'm really curious to see when we implement this. Because, okay, here it is passed. And here it... no, I get it. Because this is where I'm reading the palette. And this is where I'm reading the indexes. Because they don't call them pixels here, they call them indexes. This is what confused me. Sorry, all good. All good. So... I just misunderstood the naming there. Yeah, read indexes is a good name. I'm not used to that name, but it is a good name to be used there. I think it's better than read pixels. Back in the days, by the way, because currently you always display the color as RGB, right? For every pixel on the screen, you give it the RGB value. And that was not the case like 30 years ago. 30 years ago, what was the normal is in the frame buffer, you'd put indexes in the color palette, and then you'd have like the color palette in the graphic cards itself, and there would be like system calls or way to like through memory to write into VRAM, into video RAM, to change and modify the color palette. And that allowed people to do some really cool and creative stuff. For example, one of the best things, absolutely best things, was that, so you have a screen, right? And you like, for example, fill the screen with just like index 0 and nothing more. So, and then the scan line on the monitor starts to refresh. It refreshes like every pixel at a time. It refreshes every frame like 60 times per second or whatever your monitor is, right? And then it goes to, there's some like waiting period, and it goes to the next scan line. And then waiting period goes to the next scan line. And what people did is they changed the color palette, the color in that palette, while this like, the ray basically was moving. So it was moving, and they didn't modify the pixel values, the index, what they modified was the entry in the color palette. And that way the color, like you could have index is 0, but because you changed in time, properly timed basically, the palette definition of that color 0, you could get a really nice image. And that was used to, if you even had like a color mode which allowed you to display only like 16 colors, for example, using this trick you could output a lot more colors, like a lot of colors. That was, for example, on Atari. I think on Atari the color palette was like that, was like 16. But using this trick you could easily go to 256 colors, right? So that was like... And like that was one thing, and the other thing which people did is like you had an image, for example, like think about like some vista, right? Like a hill with some clouds, blah blah blah, and people just changed the color palette, like smoothly changed it to get the impression of like it being morning, shifting into noon, shifting into afternoon, shifting into night. They didn't change the pixel at all. They just changed the definition. That was used in multiple games, by the way. Okay, the line writes that they actually checked the ABS definition, and it panics in case of minimum signed int. That's the value which I said that it might return a negative one, like a negative value. Because for absolute value of minimal signed integer, like the lowest integer, like lowest negative integer you can go to, is that integer, that negative integer. It's still negative. Why? Because like this is how it works. Because there's in the signed integer systems which we are using on our modern computers, there is one more negative number than there are positive numbers, which kind of means that if you try to convert that number to a positive number by changing its sign, which is what you do in an absolute value, there is no positive number of this distance from the 0. It just doesn't exist. And because of how sign change is implemented on like silicon level with logical gates, due to that, it will basically go back to that number. So it's kind of funny, and it takes people by surprise. It's also like on C++, for example, when people do division, like a function, and the function divides two numbers, like a by b. So people always remember, yeah, like check if b is zero, because if it divides by 0, the code will just crash. Now, the same is true if you divide a negative, minimal negative value by -1, because this is a sign change. And again, like if there is no such number, but in case of division, it actually crashes. So yeah, now you know if you didn't know that. I64. Computers are fun. Okay, and now here this match expression was actually in an assign. As a glorified switch case returns a value. Now this is amazing. I think I saw it already for return value of some function, but I need to remember that you can do this in Rust because this is cool. Okay, I return an image, I give it a header, I give it a dip header, which is a BMP dip header. And I call the factory function, I pass width as I32. Width is, why do I need to convert it? Because it's, okay, that's good. But the sheer fact that I need to convert it, like, I'm wondering now, would it be an error actually if I wouldn't convert it, or would it be an implicit cast from unsigned into signed? That's one of the issues in C that you can, or C++, you can do it. Some compilers will warn you about it, but for like, if it's like an obvious cast, then it might not even warn you about it, and it's good. It's good to be warned about that stuff. So if this is actually required, that's a really good thing, and I'm really happy for this language. Okay, and I return OK image. OK meaning that this should be returning a result, and it is returning a result, which is fine. Do you see binary exploitation coming as becoming a data science problem in the future? No, it's too complicated for AIs. Unless you don't mean AIs. But at this point, no. Not in the near future, at least. Later, we'll see, but it's like a super complex problem, and it's a logical problem at the end of the day. Not really something which can be, like, AI is heuristics at the end of the day, however you like approach it. I'm not sure if, so, okay, no, on the flip side, what makes me kind of rethink this statement which I'm making is there is this agent approach where you have like multiple agents which are like working on a problem together instead of like just like having one agent having one go at the problem. So I was thinking about the latter model. If you have multiple agents working through the code and testing it, like an exploit, for example, then maybe, that's a good question, maybe. I'm curious to see. Like, the agent approach is proving to be not bad at all for some problems. Yeah, we are entering interesting times, my friends. Okay, BM, what's BM? Ah, it's a placeholder for the magic value for the signature. Okay, if BM is equal to, ooh, it has byte notation like in Python. What is this? Why do I need this? Does this do some kind of implicit conversion to, so that I get like two lists at the end? But maybe that might be like this might be a hack which the author is using to not do the conversion in a different way. So they use just a slice of everything, which might convert this into a different but similar, like a list of bytes instead of like a byte literal. I'm kind of guessing that's what's going to convert. Okay, if it is, this is just like check header, right? Yeah, like check signature. Yeah. Okay, and it's like wrong magic. Yeah, it's called magic or signatures, whatever. Not every format has to have a signature. Sometimes, like there are formats which don't have a signature. But a lot of them have. Or for example, zip has a signature at the end of a file, and you don't even know where is it. There is like a range of bytes where it could be. And if you're curious about it, go to my blog, find my talk about zip, or actually like on this channel. You can find my talk about the zip file format. There are like, I explain in detail what I mean. If you're curious about zip, that's like I believe that's to be like one of the most like comprehensive resources about zip, and there's like one person who has implemented everything for zip from scratch, like the whole compression, everything. And I don't remember the name. I am sorry. I should remember the person's name just because of what great work they did. But that would be the second resource, which is really great to check if you are into zips. Evacuate BMP result, BMP header. Okay, now I'm curious about like that BMP result thingy. Oh, BMP result is actually from this file? Did I already like implement it here? Yeah, type BMP result is just a result, which what's the result? Okay. Yeah, so that's not super verbose in what it's going over. Read bitmap header, I'm getting a cursor. I still don't know what a cursor is in this context. And then I'm doing let header equal BMP header file size BMP. This is like selective field filling, like in C99 or JavaScript. What's it JavaScript? Or am I thinking of a different language now? Too many languages. U16. Yeah, it's reading field by field, which answers like at least, well, doesn't answer really my question. Little endian. Okay, and pixel offset BMP data read U32 little endian. I'm still a little bit confused about what's like this syntax. The syntax is weird. I do not understand it. I need to think about it later. Okay, because I have questions marks here. That's cool. That's like convenient. And I guess like in C++ you would have to write a little bit more code there or use exceptions to get the same result. The question is transcribing for learning good? This is how I learn at the beginning. Like the first steps I make when learning is transcribing. Like literally the first step. I start transcribing. Then and then I move away from it, right? And then I like go into more normal things. But the reason I am transcribing again is to start thinking, familiarize myself with the syntax, so it's not alien to me anymore. Already spot some typical code patterns, idiomatic code and so on, which I will be using later on. And also form hypotheses on some of the code which I see, so I can check them later and like start making a mental list of questions which I need answers for later on when I will be reading some materials about it. So at the beginning, I think that's not a bad way to go. But yeah, you know, like for me, for you, might be different. We are similar, but we are also different. As is the case with every human out there. But try it. Like, maybe it works for you, and maybe no. Maybe you need a different approach. The header, I don't think there's anything interesting here. Yeah, it's just like finishing this template. Okay. Part of the world writes, in case of type mismatch, compiler generates the error mismatch types and says something like, you can't convert a U32 to I32 by changing your code to, by changing your code to var try into unwrap. What? Wow. Okay. Yeah, apparently stream quality drops at 100-minute mark. And I put an extra semicolon here. Thank you, Hayadel. That's yeah, it's like, it's, I don't know, it's either your OBS or YouTube back, where at 100-minute mark the stream quality suddenly drops. And then like I restart the stream and everything works. So I don't know. No, it's not a camera problem because like or actually no, it's not a camera problem because the rest of the live stream is also like the desktop, I think, is also going lower quality. And when I restart the stream, I don't even shut down the camera. It's just like stop sending to YouTube, restart sending to YouTube thing. And I see in OBS that the like speed of sending the signal, like the data, the video signal to YouTube drops. So that might be an OBS problem, I guess. The question is like, does anyone else suffer it, or is it like specific to my problem, to my system? Okay, I don't think I'm going to finish transcribing this on this live stream. There's like way more code to write. So let me finish one more function maybe, and I will, I think I need to go back to like doing some other things. So yeah, so let's transcribe a little bit more, and then I'm going to finish it on the next stream. Apparently I underestimated how much I talk. I underestimated how much code there is to transcribe. Yeah. U32, little endian. With BMP data, read I32. Oh, by the way, the trainings which I mentioned for like the courses on binary files, if you by any accident speak Polish, they are already available. Like they will take place in end of September, beginning of October, depending on like what level, what like what deepness in the topic you're interested in. So you can check that out on hexarcana.pl or hex.securac.pl. They will be available in English later down the year as well. And these are like live trainings, as in like online live. At least at the beginning, maybe in a year we'll actually be able to have also like them available on our trainings website, but that is yet to come. So yeah, 16 little Indian. Okay, then we have compress type, and this is BMP data read U32 little Indian. Then I have data size, that's BMP data read U32 little Indian. I'm trying not to look at the code. HRES, that's I32. Read I32 little Indian. Then there's going to be VRAS, VRAS, BMP data read I32 little Indian. Nam colors BMP data read U32. One issue with learning, by the way, by analogy, as I am doing now, because you know, if you have programmed in more programming languages, like this is not your first programming language, from that moment on, when you're learning every other language, you start learning by analogy. The issue is that sometimes you have to unlearn stuff as well, not only learn new stuff. And learning is relatively easy, unlearning is painful. Uh, 144 cursor. What's a cursor? Cursor, I guess. So thank you very much. Maybe a second stream in the evening. We'll see. But likely, you know, I think I'm going to for a small hike in the evening. So, but might not work out unless it's raining and there's a thunderstorm or something. In that case, maybe there's a second stream. From Dib header. Okay, match from Dib header. Wow, this is really interesting way to form this code. Well, on the flip side, maybe not that much. BMP version from Dib header. What is from Dib header returning? BMP version from Dib header. If it's somewhere, it's going to be here. Okay, so BMP version is the implementation of this enum. Okay, now it makes sense. Yeah, okay, so this is like a switch case. I thought this is actually a little bit more smart. And then I have, I can do these. Well, this is like common in some languages. Like for example, you can do an OR in C and C++, but you just don't put anything. But that's because like switch case is actually in C or C++. Switch case is actually that's just labels. That's not really that's basically just labels at the end of the day. And if you don't believe me, then you can check this out. sdf.cc. Let's do break for C++. And I'm writing C, but that's okay. Okay, you can do this. For example, if you have int a equals 5, you can do a switch a, and then you can do like case 3, case 4, right? You can do something like this, and then you do whatever, like puts 3 or 4, and then you can have like case 5, and in case 5 you can do puts 5. Now, I'm saying these are only labels because you can do something like this. You can do if true, for example, true is 1, right? Then you can do here, else, or like maybe even here, else. You can see it already confuses Sublime, like what's going on, how do I format it? Else puts 5 else. So yeah, like I just like started an if in this case and then did an else in a different case, and I can move this, for example, I can have a default here. And I can move that ending bracket here to the default. And this is proper syntax, which is weird when you see it the first time. So G++, wall, extra, is the FCC, 25. Maybe it doesn't look like it here, maybe I do have to do it here. And I need to do a break here. Yeah, now it compiles. But it should actually work, I don't know why it's complaining. But yeah, so yeah, now I run it. Let's do actually this. And I get 5 because a is equal to 5, of course. If I put a equal to 3, I get 3 or 4. If I get it to 4, I get like 3 or 4 again. And I guess what would I have to do to put it here? I would have to put it maybe oh, I would have to do it a 0 here to be able to even get there. So let's actually change this to make it a little bit more interesting, like this. 3, 4, yeah. Okay. Now, now like you start seeing that if I have it equal to 4, I do this, but then this is false, so I don't break here. I just go with this else here. So yeah, it's like. It's kind of funny. Here, I guess I could. So I need a statement. Okay, and now I could do it like this. Thank you. I knew I was missing something simple. Thank you, Dougal, for that. So yeah, so like you can do really weird stuff with ifs and switch cases. I'm guessing in Rust you are not able to do this kind of. And pardon my like technical language bullshittery. That's a totally normal scientific term, in case you were wondering. I'm guessing, yeah, here by the syntax already, but yeah, this is like a different type of implementation of a switch case. Yeah, this is cursed. Absolutely it's cursed. Other. Okay, and I don't put a semicolon there, right? Because it's going to be a return value, I'm guessing. Then none. We do a return. Oh, here we do an explicit return. Hello there. Why do we do an explicit return here and not in other places? Okay, and okay. Header format. That's a little bit weirdish, but okay. Only simple BMP images and whatever. Dip header. Okay, and I see I can use you know what, I'm going to maybe try this and do it like this. So this seems to be the same as in. I wonder if these spaces would actually show up in the final string literal, but they do also put a space here, which makes this interesting actually. If the spaces don't show up here, then it's or the tabs, then this is actually a really interesting implementation of the backslash at the end of the line. That's curious. That's curious. Cool. Everything else, let's do like a quick. Oh, I have another match there. This is not the end of the function, apparently. Okay, so let's do another match. Oh, this means just like do nothing, I guess. Which would be a break in a normal one. You miss some question marks. Okay, I miss question marks. I'm guessing these ones here, right? Thank you, Sibus, very much for pointing that out. Ah, and that's in the line which I tried not to look at. I made mistakes there. That's good. If you're not making mistakes, are you even doing anything? 1, 4, 8, 2, 24, do nothing. Otherwise, complain. Other. Is other a keyword of some kind? Because, like, otherwise I was doing like this, right? Like this underscore, and here I'm using some other. Or is it like... Yeah, I don't know. Is that like a special keyword, or can I just put anything here? Like, can I put just ASDF here? And it would just like create a variable, maybe, which catches it? Because this apparently creates a variable which catches it. Okay, when I do unsupported Pittsburgh style. Wrong, BPP, I'm not going to write everything, and I'm going to use this, I guess. Is it the same? No, it's a different one. It's just this one. It's interesting that I don't... Oh, yeah, never mind. I was thinking about like, hey, where's the new line? But that just doesn't make sense. Other. Okay, but the formatting is a little bit different, but I don't think it's going to complain. It's not a keyword, it's an identifier later used in the code. Yeah, so this is like, these are like constants or like filters, and for everything else, it just like, just creates this variable which catches everything else, which is, if that's the case, that's pretty smart, actually. Okay, and underscore is also a variable as far as I'm concerned. Write only one. Okay. As far as I know, sorry. Wrong acronym. It's a switch with arrows. It's a little bit, yeah, it's a glorified switch. It's a glorified switch. Compression type from U32, div, header, compress type. Okay, and we do compression type uncompressed. It doesn't support any compression, really? Why? But run length encoding is the most fun thing about this format. Come on. Compression type, and there's like something else. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Okay. Why couldn't they do like okay with 2 capitals? Cool. So I think I'm going to like finish here because it's still going to take me some time to transcribe it and test it and so on and so forth. So let's finish this on the next live stream. I'm going to just note in my notes that I need to continue from here. Okay. Yeah, right. So this is perfect. I started learning Rust 2 weeks ago, and now we can all be confused together. Yeah, this is absolutely beautiful. I fully agree. This is why I'm documenting my journey. So I learned a lot today, I believe, especially thanks to your help on the chat. So thank you very much for being with me and like helping me through the journey. D-Line writes, regarding casts, as our C-like casts are usually discouraged, they never fail and truncate numbers. Into method does infallible casts like I32 into I64, and try into does failable by returning result. This is a really important piece of information, so thank you for sharing that. It writes, you tried Notion for notes, it has code blocks, good key shortcuts. I have not. I'm pretty happy with Google Docs for now. I know Notion is really good actually, but for now I'm happy with Google Docs. Maybe in the future I will switch. Like these notes are like super short, it's like 2 pages, but usually when I like work on something, the pages are like, 10 pages, 20 pages, 30 pages, and it's pretty fine. I believe you that Notion might be better because that's why it was created. On the flip side, so far I'm pretty happy with what I have. But I think my wife uses Notion actually. So yeah, I'm kind of familiar with at least how it looks. So thank you folks for being here. I'm going to make like a next live stream. I don't know if tomorrow, but maybe tomorrow or Monday evening, and I'll just like continue going through this. I guess one thing this live stream will show some people is that yeah, you don't need to put in hours to learn stuff, but that's fine. That's okay. I'm happy to spend like 100 or 200 hours on getting to some like okay-ish level with Rust, and then likely 1,000 more hours before which I'm probably not going to document any further, to get to like a really good level. Cool. So thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of your day. And I still don't have an ending screen, so I am going to weirdly cut off at a random moment. So yeah.